The voice sliced through the silence like a blade. "Why are you wasting company paper for this?" the manager snapped, loud enough to make every head turn. The room, once buzzing with fluorescent monotony, went still. The woman stood frozen, clutching a faded receipt with fingers that trembled against her will. Her breath hitched, caught somewhere between fear and disbelief. Beside her, an elderly customer blinked in confusion. The woman barely managed a whisper, her voice paper-thin. I was just trying to help her reprint it. I thought it was okay." Her cheeks burned with shame, her eyes lowered, not from guilt, but from the sudden weight of humiliation. The manager sneered. "Thought wrong, didn't you?" Then louder, for all to hear. "This isn't a charity. We don't hand out freebies." A tense hush settled over the store. Even the overhead pop music seemed to falter, fading beneath the strain in the air. The receipt slipped from her hand, drifting silently to the floor where it landed near a pair of scuffed black shoes. A man stood nearby, ordinary at first glance, polo shirt, tool belt, trainee badge. But something in his stillness stood out. His eyes, sharper than his uniform, followed every detail. He didn't speak, didn't move, but he was paying attention. Outside, the sky hung low and gray, mist threading between bare trees. Carla pedaled through the morning chill, her jacket no match for the wind biting through it. Her hands gripped the handlebars tightly, each breath curling into the air like pale smoke. The road stretched quiet beneath her, damp with overnight rain, her tires whispering across slick pavement. It was her ritual, and rituals brought comfort, especially when nothing else in life offered certainty. She passed a small bakery, where the scent of fresh bread offered a fleeting warmth. The guard at the back entrance gave a friendly wave. "Morning, Miss Carla. Early again?" She smiled, nodding. It was always yes. She leaned her worn-out bike gently against the brick wall. One pedal wobbled, the seat cushion frayed and cracked, but she never complained. Tools don't complain, she used to tell herself. They just keep working. Inside, she pulled a faded name badge from her pocket and clipped it to her shirt with care. The plastic was scratched, the edges dulled, but it was hers, and that mattered. She let out a breath, slow and measured, then pushed open the employee door. Just another day, another shift, but even she didn't know how much this one would change. The break room was cramped, lit by a single flickering bulb. Stacks of unopened boxes lined the walls like cardboard sentinels. She sat on an overturned crate, a modest lunch resting on her lap. Cold rice, a boiled egg, pickled vegetables packed in a container that had seen better days. She unwrapped it slowly, reverently, as if it were more than just food. A younger worker stepped in, hoodie, headphones, face pale from the morning rush. He scanned the room, then slid down against a metal shelf. No lunch, no bag, no words. Just hunger hidden behind silence. She didn't ask. She never did. She simply offered half her rice and the egg, extending them with a quiet grace. He hesitated, then took them without a word. "Thank you," he murmured. She smiled, like it was nothing. Like kindness wasn't a currency, just the way people ought to live. They ate in silence. No music, no chatter. Just the sound of plastic forks scraping and the hum of a machine, too cold to care. 15 minutes. That was all they had. And yet in those 15 minutes, something deeply human unfolded between them. Later, she was on her knees near aisle 5, a yellow caution sign standing beside her like a mute companion. The water in her mop bucket had already turned gray, and her hands worked in methodical circles. The tiles glistened with effort, though no one noticed. Boots rushed past. One nearly stepped on her. She flinched, instinctively pulling her arm away. No apology, no glance back, just footsteps echoing away like she never existed. She looked up for a second. Her eyes searched for something. Recognition, a smile, anything. But the world moved on. and she returned to her scrubbing. Across the aisle, the man in the plain polo was still watching, quiet, still, observing. He wasn't just seeing a janitor anymore. He was seeing something else, something the world often overlooked. He stood near the stockroom now, awkwardly holding a pricing gun. His stance betrayed him. This was his first day. She noticed the unsure grip, the confusion in his eyes. "First day?" she asked gently. He nodded, sheepish. "Yeah. They told me to start with labeling." Without missing a beat, she walked over, took the gun from his hands. "This one's tricky. Gets jammed a lot. But if you hold it like this..." She guided his grip with practiced ease. He watched closely, absorbing her calm. She smiled. "You'll get used to it. Everyone's lost on day one." He chuckled softly. "Thanks. I'm Mark." "Carla," she replied, and walked back to her cart. Mark stared at her name tag. Faded, chipped edges. But the letters were still proud. Carla, Customer Care Team, since 2013. They worked together after that, restocking shelves, folding boxes. Carla moved like music, rhythm in every step. Mark tried to keep pace, but often stumbled. When he dropped a pack of napkins, she helped him, no sighs, no scolding. "You've been here a while?" he asked. She nodded. 10 years, his eyebrows shot up. 10, she smiled. "Never missed a day? Not even one? Rain, snow, flu, doesn't matter." Her voice was steady. "This job isn't perfect, but I show up. That counts for something." Mark didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. She turned back to her shelf, aligning each product with quiet precision. Every gesture, every detail, an act of pride in a world that rarely noticed. And for the first time, he saw her not just as a worker, but as someone deeply whole, someone who mattered. It wasn't just a name tag, and she wasn't just another worker. Carla was the kind of person who showed up, rain or shine, flu or frost. Because for her, reliability wasn't a task. It was a commitment. She stood, joints aching after finishing the last row of perfectly aligned soup cans. Her fingers absently brushed against the hem of her apron as she wiped them clean. Mark, still learning the quiet tempo of the store, noticed her attention to detail. "Looks good," he said, almost under his breath. She gave a nod. Always does. But across the polished floor, near the checkout counters, another pair of eyes watched her with none of Mark's warmth. Jenna stood stiff-backed, arms folded tight around a clipboard like it was armor. Her expression didn't waver. No greeting, no kindness. Just observation sharpened into judgment. Carla's smile dimmed, barely. She offered a small, respectful nod. Jenna didn't return it. Her heels clicked away, quick and cold. "Who's that?" Mark asked, noting the strange tension thickening the air. Carla took a second before replying. "That's Jenna, scheduling manager." Her voice had flattened just a bit, like someone closing a door without slamming it. She picked up her mop bucket and walked away, steady, practiced. At 8:03, Carla pushed through the back door, breath shallow. Her bike chain had slipped a block from the store, costing her precious minutes. She hung her coat, tied her apron with mechanical precision, and snatched the checklist from its hook. Routine, born of necessity. Jenna was already waiting by the time clock, arms crossed, impatience radiating off her like heat. "You're late," she snapped. Carla blinked. 3 minutes, I'm sorry." "Doesn't matter," Jenna interrupted. "Already logged. You'll lose 15 minutes pay." Carla hesitated, confusion flickering behind her eyes. "I wasn't even on the floor yet." "You can file a complaint," Jenna replied, already walking off. "HR's online." There was no room for defense, no breath left for dignity. Carla stood there, one hand still holding the clipboard, while the weight of invisible injustice pressed on her chest. From a few feet away, Mark saw it all. The drop in her shoulders, the breath she pulled in to stay upright. But then, she straightened. She moved, because there was always work. Security footage later would show aisle 3. Silent, black and white clips. Mark stood by a cereal display, a pen in one hand, a folded notepad in the other. He wasn't restocking. He was writing, discrete bullet points, names, numbers. His eyes flicked up now and then, always watching. Across the aisle, Carla pushed a heavy cart. One wheel jammed again. She nudged it forward with her knee, her movement subtle but exhausted. Later, another clip. The same notepad now resting near the time clock. Jenna argued with a younger worker. Mark watched, wrote again. The footage looped, but his focus didn't break. He wasn't here to learn product codes anymore. Near checkout, an elderly woman clutched a bag of cat food, her hands trembling. "I think I dropped my receipt," she said, voice almost lost in the surrounding noise. Carla stepped forward. "It's okay, ma'am. I'll reprint it for you." She moved with warmth, not haste. Tapped a few keys, handed the new receipt over gently, with both hands. The woman beamed. "Thank you, dear. My eyes aren't what they used to be." But behind them, Jenna emerged. Arms folded, tone cold. "Carla, that's not protocol." Carla turned. She lost her. We don't reprint receipts without a manager's code. You know that. No room for humanity. Just rules." Carla nodded. Yes, understood. The woman, now embarrassed, shrank back. Carla's eyes lingered on her for a beat too long before returning to her tasks. Mark saw it all from the snack aisle. Said nothing, but his jaw tightened. Later, in a side aisle, a young employee leaned lazily against a shelf. Earbud in, phone in hand, shoes untied. Carla passed with a heavy cart of paper towels. She paused, only to straighten a crooked end cap display, something no one else had noticed. Jenna entered moments later, spotted the slouching employee. "Hey, nice hustle today," she grinned. "Love the energy." The kid gave a lazy thumbs up. Didn't even pocket his phone. A few steps away, Carla wrestled with the jammed stockroom door. She struggled with the handle. No one offered help. No one even looked. Mark did. His notepad stayed tucked away, but his attention sharpened. He saw who received praise and who never received anything at all. In the freezer aisle, the cold bit through their gloves. Carla moved with purpose, muscle memory guiding her. Mark, beside her, fumbled with a box of frozen peas. His eyes drifted toward the front, where Jenna laughed with the assistant manager. The slouching worker passed again, phone still glowing. Mark leaned closer, voice low. "Is it always like this?" Carla didn't look at him, just rested her hands on a box. She smiled, faint, faded. Pretty much. That moment passed quietly, but something shifted. The silence became heavier. Less the weight of routine, more the echo of resignation. Mark felt it, and he remembered that tired smile. In the break room, Carla sat at an old desktop, eyes fixed on the screen. She checked her hours. Something didn't feel right. Tuesday, clock-in marked as 8:12. She remembered, 7:58. She was early. A red warning. Adjustment applied. Lost 15 minutes. Wednesday, same. Her brow furrowed. She'd never been late. Not once. Her hand hovered over the print button. Then, she stopped. Someone passed by the break room window. She didn't see them, but they saw her. She hit cancel, logged out, rose slowly. Someone else now knew that she knew. She waited outside the office, holding a printed copy of her time card. Inside, Jenna typed fast, barely looking up. "Can I ask you something?" Carla's voice was calm. Almost too calm. Jenna sighed. "If it's quick." "I think there's a mistake in my hours. 2 days show me clocking in late, but—" "You think the system's wrong?" Jenna barked. Carla tried to keep her voice even. "I just thought maybe it got edited. I know I was on time." Jenna stood. "You think I have time to double-check every little complaint?" Her voice climbed. "You think I sit around waiting to hear about your clock-ins?" Carla said nothing. Jenna snatched the paper from her hand, skimmed it, then tossed it aside. "I'll look when I can." Carla didn't move, didn't argue, just nodded quietly, turned, and left. Outside the office door, Mark had heard every word. He didn't move either, but something in his face, once open and observant, had grown still and hard. He wasn't here to watch anymore. Something had changed. Inside the stockroom, Mark stood alone among towers of unopened boxes, the overhead fluorescent bulb humming softly. Above the door, the clock ticked past 8:44 a.m. With a practiced hand, he reached into his front pocket and pulled out a small black device. Sleek, unassuming. One press. A tiny green light blinked to life beneath his collar. The camera was on. He checked the angle through his phone. Clear, discreet. Then slid it back into his pocket. Outside, footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway. Mark picked up a box of detergent, his movements natural but deliberate. He started walking slow and casual. From this moment forward, everything would be captured. Every word, every glance, every decision ignored or made in silence. The time for observing was over. Truth, unfiltered, had become the mission. His jaw clenched as he moved down the aisle. Something in him had crossed a line. He wasn't just training anymore. He was documenting. Later, the break room buzzed softly with half-hearted conversation and lukewarm coffee. Employees sat on plastic chairs, faces dull with exhaustion. Jenna stood at the front, clipboard in hand, voice clipped and mechanical. "Let's go over last week's numbers," she said, flipping through pages. Most eyes stayed glued to phones or the floor. Mark sat near the back, still, listening, watching. Then Jenna's voice sharpened. "Once again, Carla's department is behind. Stocking delays, customer complaints." Heads turned, a few surprised. Carla wasn't in the room. "She's sweet," Jenna continued, her tone flat. "I get it, but being nice doesn't move product. She's not as sharp as she used to be." A weak chuckle, an eye roll. And just like that, kindness was twisted into incompetence. No one defended her, no one questioned it. Loyalty in that room had a price. And Carla had become too expensive. Mark didn't speak, but the camera blinked steadily at his collar. Outside near the loading dock, 2 employees sipped coffee from paper cups, half hidden from view. "I heard Jenna's cleaning house next month," one muttered. "Yeah. Who's on the list?" "Not sure, but Carla's name came up." A pause. The second guy blinked. "Seriously?" "Budget cuts. She's been here too long. Costs more than the new hires." He sipped again. "Easy choice." Mark passed them with a cart. They didn't notice him. He heard every word. His pace slowed. "She doesn't even know, does she?" one asked, tone low. "Nah. You think they warn people?" They laughed, harsh and careless. The sound bounced off the concrete like a slap. Mark didn't stop, but his grip on the cart tightened. His notepad, already open in his pocket, bore the truth they thought would stay hidden. At the office, Carla stood holding a single typed sheet, her own ideas, practical and clear, outlining ways to reduce waste from overstock and packaging. She waited until Jenna hung up the phone. "I put together a quick proposal," she said softly. "Some ideas to cut down on expired inventory, maybe save the store some money." Jenna didn't look up. "Leave it on the desk." Carla stepped forward and gently placed it beside the keyboard. Jenna glanced at it like it was a receipt. "We've got a system for that already. I just thought—" "We're fine, Carla." The paper slid back toward her without a second glance. Carla folded it up quietly, tucking it back into her pocket. She didn't argue, just turned and walked away, her back straight, her hands trembling just slightly from the quiet rejection. Mark saw her pass down the hallway. Her expression was neutral, trained, but her fingers stayed curled into small, silent fists. She wasn't angry. She was just tired. Tired of being invisible. Later, at checkout, A young mother juggled groceries and a restless toddler. Her purse spilled as she tried to scan items with one hand. Carla stepped in gently. "Need help bagging?" The mother looked up, grateful and overwhelmed. "Would you? That'd be amazing." Carla smiled and moved with grace, organizing cans, diapers, cereal into perfect order, a rhythm only kindness could teach. A few feet away, Jenna stood near the service desk, arms crossed. Watching, Carla met her gaze, didn't flinch, didn't stop. "Take your time," she told the mother. "Let me know if you need anything else." "Thank you," the woman said, voice cracking a little. Seriously, Carla offered a small wave and returned to her cart. Mark, over by the produce aisle, saw everything. Carla's kindness, Jenna's scrutiny. He wasn't pretending anymore. And in that moment, the contrast became undeniable. Some people follow protocol, others follow what's right. Near aisle 7, Mark stood holding a clipboard he didn't need. His eyes tracked Carla as she lifted another bundle of paper towels, alone, without help. She never asked. She just did it. Across the floor, younger workers laughed loudly in a corner, phones out, boxes untouched. Jenna passed a customer needing directions, never slowed. Later, a cart tipped over in the back, items scattered. No one moved, except Carla. She crouched down, gathered every piece, checked the wheels, and pushed on. No complaint, no audience. Mark didn't write anything. He just watched. And the silence that filled the air wasn't the usual hum of labor. It was the silence of being unseen, day after day, until you became part of the background. Then, the call came in. A customer complaint. Something about being ignored in the pet aisle. Jenna didn't ask questions, didn't check footage. She gathered the team. "Carla, you were on shift." Carla blinked. "I was unloading dry goods. I wasn't even near that section." Jenna didn't look up. "Your name's on the floor plan. That's enough." On her tablet, a red mark appeared next to Carla's name. "Verbal warning, 30-minute deduction." "But I didn't—" "It's done," Jenna cut in. "We need accountability." Beep. The tablet confirmed it. Silence followed. Carla stood still, eyes tired but dry. She didn't argue. She never did. But this time, Mark was close enough to hear it all. Near the supply rack, he didn't blink. And this time, he wrote it down. Every word, every breath withheld. Back near the loading dock, the cold hummed through empty space. No cameras, no witnesses, just bare concrete and buzzing lights. Carla stood alone, one hand against the wall, the other gently pressed to her face. She wiped the corner of her eye with her sleeve. Quick, quiet, like erasing something that shouldn't be seen. Her breath hitched once, then steadied. She looked down at her shoes. Old soles, frayed laces, but still standing. From down the hall, Mark had stopped. He didn't call out, but his heart did, and everything was about to change. Mark didn't call her name. He didn't need to. From where he stood, watching her in that quiet, forgotten hallway, he understood something few people ever truly grasp. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks forward, silently, after being dismissed 1,000 times, carrying burdens no one sees, standing tall even when the world looks through you. Back at the register, Mark pretended to check the label printer. 2 younger workers nearby were cracking jokes while restocking magazines and gum. He turned slightly toward them, keeping his tone casual. "Hey, quick question. How long has Carla been here?" One of them snorted. "Oh, forever." The other smirked. Seriously, like at least 10 years, maybe more. Mark nodded thoughtfully. "She seems to know everything." The first rolled his eyes. "Yeah, but knowing stuff doesn't really matter now." Mark raised an eyebrow. "How do you mean?" The answer came sharp and unfiltered. "Corporate wants fresh faces. That's not her. She's stuck. Slows everything down." The second added, "She used to be respected. Now." People just ignore her. Mark didn't reply, just took a slow breath. Then the first muttered under his breath, "Let's be real. That old lady's past her value." He didn't argue, but the words settled in his chest like a stone, and they would not be forgotten. A few aisles down, Carla was carefully restocking canned beans when Jenna approached, clipboard tight in hand. "Got a minute?" she asked, voice clipped. Carla straightened, brushing dust from her apron. "Sure." Jenna avoided eye contact. "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp, you're meeting with the regional director." Carla blinked. "The director?" Jenna nodded. "Office upstairs. Don't be late." No explanation, no warmth, just an order wrapped in silence. Carla hesitated. Is something wrong?" Jenna's smile was hollow. "That's for them to discuss." Then she walked away. Carla stood frozen beside the shelving cart, one hand resting on a can, the other trembling slightly. Her mind raced, but her face remained calm. Down the aisle, Mark saw it all from behind a display. He didn't need to hear the words. Her posture told him everything. Something was coming. The store's intercom crackled. "Attention staff, mandatory meeting in the main room, 5 minutes." Voices stirred. Workers abandoned carts mid-aisle. Jenna walked fast, face tight. No clipboard now, just urgency. "Everyone, now," she commanded, her voice hard. Carla emerged from aisle 4, confused. She glanced at Mark. He shrugged but followed. In the main room, chairs had been pulled into a rough circle. No coffee, no agenda, just tension. Jenna stood at the front, arms crossed. She didn't look at anyone. Whispers floated through the room like smoke. "Someone get fired? Another cut? Maybe it's about her." Carla took a seat quietly at the edge, folding her hands in her lap. Mark sat across from her, his face unreadable. The room buzzed with speculation until the door opened. Slow, measured steps. Heads turned. Mark walked in, but this wasn't the same man they'd seen stacking soup or hauling boxes. He wore no tool belt, no badge, just a pressed blazer, clean shirt, sharp shoes. He walked to the front of the room and stood beside Jenna, who had paled visibly. She didn't meet his eyes. He looked out over the room, calm, focused, then spoke, voice low but unmistakably clear. "My name is Marcus Lang. I'm the founder and CEO of this company." Gasps echoed across the room. One chair scraped the floor. He paused, letting the silence speak for itself. "For the past 5 days, I've worked here, not as a boss, but as one of you, to see what actually happens when no one is watching." The air thickened. Some employees looked at the ground. Others stared at Carla. She didn't move. Jenna took a step back, her jaw clenched. Marcus pulled a folded sheet from his pocket. "I've seen enough. Not just mistakes, patterns, names, incidents, choices made when no one thought they mattered." He unfolded the paper. His voice remained steady, unshaken. "I've walked these aisles, stocked your shelves, watched, listened." He scanned the room, then looked straight at Carla. "And I've seen one woman carry more weight, with more grace and patience, than most teams combined." A wave of silence swept over the room. No whispers now. He reached into a folder and retrieved a remote. With one click, a screen behind him came to life. Grainy footage began to play. Carla kneeling beside an elderly customer, reprinting a lost receipt. Then Jenna's voice echoed across the room. "This isn't a charity. We don't give out freebies." The clip shifted. Carla in the break room holding her time card. Jenna again. "You think I'm here to listen to your complaints?" Then another. Jenna's tablet. A red warning. 30-minute pay deduction, clip after clip, quiet cruelty, loud dismissals. Carla, never shouting, never pleading, just enduring. When the screen went dark, the room stayed silent, thick, heavy. Marcus turned back to them, his voice calm. "No one should be treated like this, not in my company." And just like that, the invisible weight Carla had carried was now held by everyone. All eyes turned to Jenna. She stood rigid by the wall, arms crossed, but her posture sagged. Her clipboard, once gripped like a shield, now hung limp at her side. She looked at the screen again, at Carla's face frozen in silence, then lowered her head, not in anger, not in rebellion, but in shame. No apology came, no words, because there was nothing left to say. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "This branch," he announced, "will be closed. Effective immediately." Gasps erupted. Someone whispered, "What?" He raised a hand gently. Not out of punishment, not out of revenge. His voice steadied. "But because the culture here has failed, and if we don't start over, we're only planting rotten seeds." "But culture begins at the top," Marcus said, his voice steady. Not angry, just honest. "And this one failed." He turned, slowly, looking directly at Jenna, then toward the assistants, and finally, toward all the others who had stayed silent too long. "I won't rebuild on rot. I'd rather start fresh, with people who know what this place was meant to be." Gasps rippled through the room. Some eyes widened with disbelief. A few narrowed in quiet frustration. But Carla didn't flinch. Her hands stayed calmly folded in her lap. It wasn't shock that held her still. It was something deeper. Release. Someone had finally said it. Out loud, publicly. It wasn't just her job that was being acknowledged. It was the invisible burden she had carried, quietly, relentlessly, without ever asking for thanks. Then, Marcus turned fully to face her. The room held its breath. He didn't look at her as an employee now. He saw her for what she truly was. Someone who'd held this place together through nothing but sheer dignity and compassion. "If you're willing," he said gently, "you'll be the first person we keep." Carla blinked. Her lips parted, but the words didn't come. "You've shown more leadership, care, and integrity than I've seen in years," he continued, "and we can't afford to lose that." A long pause followed. She glanced around. Faces that once ignored her now watched with quiet reverence. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Marcus smiled softly. "Then just say yes." She looked down at her hands, scarred by time, worn from work. Then back up. And for the first time in years, she felt seen. Not for how long she'd endured, but for who she was beneath the silence. She didn't answer right away, just sat in the stillness. Then, a single pair of hands began to clap. Slow. Then another. And then the room erupted. Not in chaos, but in clarity. Applause built, strong and full. The same people who once looked through her now stood for her. Even the younger staff joined in, uncertain but sincere. Carla's hand brushed beneath her eye, just once. Reflex. She wasn't crying, not yet, but she felt everything. Marcus didn't take credit. He simply nodded, knowing this moment didn't belong to him. She stood, slowly, not with pride or performance, but with quiet purpose. And in that moment, decades of silence cracked open, not out of pity, but out of earned, overdue respect. As the noise softened, Marcus reached into his folder again. This time, he pulled out a plain white envelope, sealed with a silver tab. He stepped forward and placed it gently into her hands. Carla looked down, confused, then back at him. "It's not just about keeping you," he said. "It's about trusting you to lead." She opened it slowly. Inside, an offer letter. The words were simple, but seismic. Store Manager, Central Redevelopment Model, Pilot Branch Program, Lead, Carla Mendes. Her breath caught in her throat. The text blurred. Marcus leaned in slightly. "I want the next store to become what this one failed to be. And I want you to build it." Carla stared at the page. Her fingers trembled slightly. The same hands that once scrubbed tiles now held the future. This wasn't just a promotion. It was redemption, a reversal, a rewriting of her entire story. The light through the store's front windows struck just right. Clean glass, no dust, no flicker. And with that, everything began again. The new branch was bright. Fresh paint, wide aisles, warm, intentional light. It didn't hum with tension, it moved with flow. Carla stepped inside, a soft morning breeze at her back. "Good morning, manager," a young cashier called out. Another waved from produce. "Need help with the break room?" She nodded, still adjusting to her title. Not because she doubted it, but because it finally felt real. Above the service counter, a handwritten note had been taped to the wall. "Kindness is not policy, it's culture." Carla smiled faintly. Her own words. Now company principle. In her office, the nameplate was modest. No frills, just hers. She placed her bag down, took a breath, and for the first time in years, this didn't feel like survival. It felt like building something better. At Register 3, a new employee stood nervously. Young, wide-eyed, a hearing aid behind one ear. His fingers hovered over the screen, unsure. Carla approached slowly with a notepad. She tapped his arm gently, then wrote on the paper, "Let's do it together." He nodded. Step by step she showed him, gently, patiently. No rush. When he got it wrong, she didn't flinch. Just wrote, "Try again." The customers watched quietly. They weren't in a hurry. And when he finally got it, she gave him a thumbs up. He beamed. Not a word was spoken, but everything was understood. From across the parking lot, Marcus stood watching. No suit this time, just a quiet figure on the sidewalk. Through the glass, he saw Carla laughing gently with a customer, helping the new hire finish a transaction. No tension in her shoulders, no pressure, just flow. The young employee completed the sale. A tiny fist bump followed. Marcus smiled, not for show, just real. This was what he had hoped for. Not perfection, just proof. Proof that leadership could look like kindness, that culture could be rewritten. He didn't go inside, didn't need applause. He turned, glanced back once, and stepped off the curb. Because sometimes the best thing a leader can do is step aside. Later on lunch break, the young employee sat beside Carla, nervous, tapping his fingers. She poured warm tea from her thermos into a cup and slid it toward him. No words. After a moment, he asked, "How do you know if you're doing it right?" Carla sipped quietly, then set the cup down. "You won't always know," she said. "Some days people ignore you. Some days no one says thank you." He nodded, uncertain. "But if you lead with kindness," she added, "you'll never lose your way, even when no one's watching." The words landed, not as advice, but truth. Earned, lived. Checkout lines moved, items scanned, life carried on. An older man stepped forward with a loaf of bread and milk. Carla greeted him with a nod, bagged the items. He paused. "Thank you," he said softly. "Not just today, for how you treat people." She looked up, caught off guard. He smiled and walked out slowly. Carla stood still. Not because the line stopped, but because something in her paused too. That moment didn't need music or spotlight. It just needed to be noticed. Not for what she fixed, but for how gently she changed everything around her. And when the door closed behind that man, it didn't end. It opened. The store. Lights dimmed into closing hour. Shelves neat. Voices soft. Carla stood by the door, offering a final wave to the last customer. No fanfare, just presence. The camera lingered on her face, quiet, still, solid. Then, fade to black. Text appeared on screen. "Have you ever met someone like her? Comment, 'Me too,' if you have." A pause, because kindness isn't rare. It's just often overlooked. Final line. "Follow us to meet the next one. Someone you might already walk past every day." Soft music swelled, not loud, not flashy. Just an invitation. To notice, to believe, to lead with heart.